Raymond, I've got some good news for you today.
All right. Well, it better be good.
Oh, it's good. There is some trade rumors swirling around another quarterback, but this one a little bit closer to home. A gentleman by the name of Russell Wilson from the Seattle Seahawks. Yes, it is being rumored that he may also be seeking a trade. So this made me wonder, Ray, if he is seeking a trade, Ray, what would you do to celebrate if he actually was traded away from the Seattle Seahawks?
Man, what wouldn't I do? I would probably buy his house because he's probably going to sell it. And then I would invite him back to it as we celebrate his departure. I would offer him the gift of the Super Bowl loss that he endured in his back-to-back run. And it would be a remastered version because it is quite removed in terms of time. So I want him to have the best version available. And I just really want the last play of the game where they threw the ball instead of running it, which clearly they should have done. I would also give him a jersey with his number on it and a Niner jersey, and it would have the stench of champagne from all of the debaucherous partying that would go on before we give him the jersey.
In his house.
In his house. And then we send him on his way. Maybe I take his mother, Mrs. Wilson, out for a steak dinner and never call her again. Who knows how far this will go?
Oh, man. I don't even know if we can keep that one.
This is the GoldCast.
Boom! Welcome to another edition of the GoldCast. We are the voice of the Bay. I'm your host, Rudy3 and with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Solis the first, baby.
Boom! So, Raymond, here it is. The Russell Wilson saga also continues, and this one is a little bit different. Obviously, we like to talk about Deshaun Watson a lot lately because it's definitely in play, but this one is the opposite. This is our storied rival, the Seattle Seahawks, losing their quarterback. Not gaining a quarterback, losing their quarterback. He has some beef with Pete Carroll. He wants to get more of a high passing offense, not a run offense. Pete Carroll wants to do the opposite. He wants to go more towards running, less towards passing. And the two are a little bit of an impasse. I mean, even Richard Sherman tweeted about this, the little emoji with the zipper mouth, like, in reaction to, I think, Jermaine Kearse, I think that's how you say his name, about him posting something, and it was him, the guy looking around, and, that even ex-Seahawks are now reacting to this. Clearly something is brewing, and they said the Wilson has not formally requested a trade, but here are the teams he is interested in going to. Even though he hasn't requested it, this is where he would go. So he's interested in going to the Cowboys, the Saints, the Raiders, the Bears. It just kind of gets a little bit weirder as we go down. Ray, what do you think about this possible trade? What are your thoughts?
Man, I think if those are the best teams that he could come up with, man, oh man, are we in for a treat if he does indeed get traded. Now, I guess my understanding of this is that he ideally would like to stay in Seattle, but the fact that I do recall, I think earlier this month, that he made a comment along the lines of, hey, I've getting hit as much as I do get hit year in, year out is not fun, and I would like better protection, which I think is not asking, if I were to ever defend Russell Wilson, it would be for this. I don't think asking for better protection on the offensive line is asking much. In fact, I think that's the default standard for every quarterback in the National Football League. So the fact that he feels the need to voice it is very concerning if you're a Seahawks fan, and more importantly, if you're a quarterback in the Seahawks organization. Because clearly, from their perspective, they do not value offensive linemen the way pretty much the rest of the league does. So I don't know. They've always undervalued that position. I'm not sure why. And yeah, Russell Wilson's usually running for his life half the season, and he's very good at it, but he's getting older. He's lost a step or two, and that's eventually going to catch up to him. And I remember he took a hit. He took a hit in the Niners game where he was clearly glazed. His eyes were glazed. Remember that game? I saw him glaze. He was definitely fighting it. And because if the refs caught that as well as we did, because we're on national television, the camera's in his face. It's a much bigger perspective than what the refs have from their perspective. In my opinion, they don't have a high definition version of Russell Wilson a foot away from them, whereas we do at home. And he was glazed. He got rocked to easily concussion 101 symptoms, but he fought it and stayed in the game as a result. But this guy is not too many hits away from not being able to, Oscar perform his way out of that anymore. So I think that, that's a big deal. And if he leaves, that part of it, I just simply say, okay, cool story. Let's move on. Let's move on back to the Niners and Watson.
It's definitely something that worth being monitored. I will say this. I will say, in my opinion, I think the chances of him actually getting traded are next to impossible. But the fact that these rumors are swirling, and they're also swirling Deshaun Watson, and we've already seen Carson Wentz get moved. We already saw, who else got moved? Someone else got moved. Who am I running a blank on? I know Wentz moved. Someone else moved, but it doesn't matter. You have to go to that show to find out. But the fact that this has occurred is worth monitoring. We'll see. I don't think he gets traded. Do you honestly think he gets traded?
I don't think he gets traded. I think he gets disgruntled. I think that rift continues to grow because Steve Carroll's like 70.
Pete Carroll.
Yeah, Pete
Steve
Carroll.
Carell is a great comedian.
Yeah, Pete Carroll is old and very stubborn and stuck in his ways. So the likelihood of him giving up quote unquote power or control of the offense to appease Russell Wilson and his ability to, he's a dynamic thrower of the football. He wasn't when he went to those back-to-back Super Bowls. That was more running and defense. But now he has the throwing prowess that has elevated him to MVP conversations year in and year out. He puts up top flight numbers year in and year out. His completion percentage is insane. His comeback ability is off the charts good. Probably the best in the NFL, in my opinion. And I just think it's like what are you doing if you're Seattle? And despite that, I think it's just, I don't know. I think it goes back to the beginning of this rant. It's just Pete Carroll's not going to give up any control. He believes in the West Coast offense, which is a mixture of running and pass, the same way Kyle Shanahan does. But Kyle Shanahan has the ability to adjust. It's based on how dynamic the quarterback is that he's playing with. His whole career has been like this. It's well documented. It's always tailored to the strength of the quarterback, not to what I want to do in general, which may negate some of my quarterback's abilities or my quarterback's ceilings, in this case with Russell Wilson. So I think he stays with Seattle and he eventually complies because he's not the type of player that's going to sit out. He wants to play. The situation in Houston is pretty dire, whereas Seattle's not dire. They just need to fix a couple holes and take care of Russell Wilson, and then he'll be fine for the most part. The need to want to open up the passing game the way he would like to can easily be. I can see Russell Wilson overlooking that and getting over that if they focus on offensive line help in this offseason.
Exactly. And who knows if they will. Don't forget they traded their center away for Jimmy Graham. One of the most infamous, dumbest trades I've ever seen in all of football. All right,
a lot of good that got them.
Yeah. Let's move on right here. It's time for our annual or weekly Deshaun Watson talk.
Yeah, exactly. Time for the weekly check-in of Watson.
This is a big one. Why don't you tell the people what happened? This is a pretty big one.
So we've been talking about this quite a bit for those of you that are following along. For those of you that live under a rock or perhaps don't own a TV, Deshaun Watson we've been talking about the rumors swirling around, and everything just keeps pointing towards Watson getting traded at some point. We don't know when, we don't know how, we don't know for how much, but we do know is that it's highly likely that he gets traded at this point. And today's news further cements that notion. So Deshaun Watson met with David Culley today, who's the brand new head coach of the Houston Texans, and they were talking about the team going forward. And Deshaun Watson said, "I don't care. I'm not playing for you. I want to be traded. Period." I'm paraphrasing, but that is in a nutshell what he said. And this was quoted on Twitter. It's reported. It's not like confirmed, but I mean, this is I believe it. In my opinion, I believe it to be true. Based on everything else that has happened up to this point, it makes more sense that this is true than otherwise. So for the sake of argument, let's say it is true. All this does is prove what we've been saying this whole time, that Deshaun Watson is indeed going to leave the Houston Texans. He will not be a Houston Texan in the foreseeable future. It's just a matter of, are they going to call that? If you're David Culley and Nick Caserio, they're going to call it and say, all right, sit out the season. We'll see how long it takes for you to come around. Or are they just going to say, you know what, this is just unfortunate. The way our hirings were handled is just never going to sway his mind. So let's just get a king's ransom and start over.
That's the question. And I believe, and I said this on Tuesday's episode, and I do believe it. I believe what happens is Watson most likely sits out. If they were smart, and I don't know if they are, if they were smart, they would trade him before the draft, because the draft is literally coming up right now. We're mere months away from the draft.
Right, and they could fulfill all the picks that they don't have right now with a Watson trade and easily get into the quarterback sweepstakes after a 4-12 season. You got a high pick. There's good quarterbacks available this draft. Not all of them are going to be swooped up by the time it gets to Houston, especially depending on the type of pick they get too. I mean, I guess that has something to do with it too. I mean, because you're getting a first round pick from another team, that does affect positioning. So, but at the same time, the possibility's there. You can start from scratch without a disgruntled quarterback, build anew. But again, that's a different podcast for another day that I don't work for.
That is. Yeah. So obviously I think this is probably the biggest impasse that we've come to. Now it's just this is a matter of when. 49er Empire, 49er Faithful, GoldCast Empire. This isn't a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And the question is, where does he go? And are the Niners in play? But again, as I said last week, even if he isn't, Jimmy G is a great quarterback. And I have a lot of faith in his ability to continue to carry this team. So don't go doom and gloom. We were literally just on the Super Bowl 2 years ago. We were literally there with Jimmy G. And we were a couple different playoff plays, decisions away from winning that game. So everyone stay calm. All right, Ray, but let's talk about our next boy, the man behind the mask, the man behind the mirror, our boy Adam Peters, the man, the myth, the guy the secret weapon of the front office. I mean, he has helped orchestrate 3 different Super Bowl teams and has come away with a 1 win. And this guy is just gold. He was actively searching and actively interviewing for the general manager positions, the vacant ones that were available around the league. It sounded like he did get kind of close with Carolina. He went back there for a second interview, and that one he ended up losing out to, I believe, one of the Chiefs front office guys. So he is back in San Francisco, and in a wise move by the 49ers brass, he has now been promoted to assistant general manager. This is some big news. Actually came out late last week, but we were deep in Deshaun Watson conversations, and so now we're just getting to this. Adam Peters doesn't get enough promotion. I think you and I are really big fans of him, and we've kind of pumped them. And if you're a GoldCast Empire subscriber, you definitely know who Adam Peters is. We've talked about him a lot, and just how important he is to this team. And I think this is obviously a strategic move and a great move. What are your thoughts on the Adam Peters promotion?
Well, it's always been suggested in the past. I mean, Adam Teeters got retained we talked about his retention, which was about 10 episodes back, I believe, episode 281. We said Adam Peters returns because Carolina hired a different GM, and which was great news. So, I mean, maybe not great if you're Adam Peters because you're trying to move up the chain. But this promotion pretty much says, hey, don't worry. You're going to be the GM of the 49ers, and we're going to promote John Lynch, which is where I believe this was going. We talked about this type of rumor a while back. I forget the implications on what suggested that, but it was the fact that John Lynch is eventually going to get promoted to the next level up, which is president or something like that. And then I know Al Guido's also a president of some sorts too, but John Lynch is going to get a promotion and a new title. And as a result, we're going to need a new GM, similar with when the Giants, Brian Saban got promoted, and then his best player draft personnel and analyst got promoted to GM. Same exact thing. Lynch is going to get promoted, which is why they gave him assistant GM. They're saying, hey, all right, now we are equal. You're now my assistant. And then when I move up, you're going to take over my whole position. That's basically what they're now incentivizing him. I don't believe he goes to a GM interview next offseason. Next offseason, either that happens or perhaps he spends, an additional year in the assistant GM role. But I'm inclined to believe that they're going to make the official transition of John Lynch moves up, Adam Peters becomes full GM versus assistant GM sooner rather than later.
I agree, but one contingency. I think had the 49ers won in 2019, John Lynch probably already would have moved up.
I agree, yes. The loss is what kept that transition from happening for sure.
Yeah, and so I think a lot is dependent on how this season ends and how John Lynch feels. I think John Lynch really wants to win a Lombardi as the general manager. And I think he wants to see that goal through the first time. And then when that occurs, he will then move up. So if the Niners can win a Super Bowl next year, which is well within reason, that's not really unreasonable at all to think at all. That isn't. If they do, then I think you will see this move happen. If they do not, the question is, does Adam Peters want to stay, or does he want to continue? Does he want to interview for vacant GM jobs? And then, of course, it always will depend on what vacant GM jobs are available. There might be teams next year that he's not interested in running, that he doesn't want to be part of those front offices. Maybe there's not this team, because clearly they're kind of in a full rebuild mode, but it'd be like if the Jets were available next year versus this year. He's like, maybe I don't want to go to the Jets. They're kind of, they've been a pretty dysfunctional franchise for quite some time.
True, but he would be joining Saleh in that case, and they would have that rapport. And I know that Saleh is probably commanding a lot of influence in terms of team direction. So I think that when Peter's coming aboard, they would adopt a similar relationship that Kyle and Lynch have now. That would be my prediction if he went that route, assuming that would be a viable vacancy next season, which I don't think so at this point.
No, I'm just bringing up theoretical teams who have bad front offices. I'm not saying that that's a real possibility, and I'm not even counting Saleh as part of that equation. We're just talking about the front office. But yeah, I think it is really contingent on how the 49ers end the season, and then depending on what GM jobs are available and how Lynch and Adam Peters feel. We obviously get another year of Adam Peters. For me, I think the next season remains to be seen. I think we'll have a better understanding at the end of this season what exactly is going to happen.
I agree. I also think that him returning for this year's draft is really crucial, because we're going to lose a lot of players this offseason because we just don't have the cash to retain them. And we're going to need Adam Peters' brain to help us fill some of those holes, because a lot of those holes are going to be filled with young players, and we need the right talent like we've been getting, a la Nick Bosa and Fred Warner, Pro Bowl caliber players to fill those voids now while they're young and inexpensive, so that we can kind of, not skip a beat this upcoming season, because we're going to lose way more pieces this upcoming season than we did this past season. And the only unfortunate thing about that is that the lost pieces this year, nobody was lost per se to another team. They were just lost to injury. And now we're just not going to have them at all. So, and we already let go Weston Richburg. So the center that we had the last couple seasons, he's gone now. So we have to fill that void, which we will. We already have a piece in place, but I think the idea is to get younger and more talented right now. So Adam Peters is, I think, the keeping him and promoting him in such a crucial season is huge for the 2021 season.
Agreed. This draft especially, and then we'll see how they do. But what say you, GoldCast Empire? How do you feel about this Russell Wilson trade? How real do you think this is on a scale of 1 to 10? Let us know. And then thoughts on Adam Peters one more year. Does he get promoted at the end of this year, or does he possibly leave? Let us know in the comments. Go to youtube.com/thegoldcast and let us know. And Ray, we will be back next week to continue talking Bay Area sports. And so concludes another edition of the GoldCast. We are the voice of the Bay. I'm your host, Rudy3 III, and with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Solis the first, baby.
Boom! We'll see you next time. Same GoldCast time, same GoldCast channel.